about tablature for ukulele. It is a very interesting thing to teach. I will never forget the first time I attempted. I think it's so important. I just noticed that a lot of my students felt uncomfortable singing along with playing chords on the ukulele. So it wasn't super rewarding because we would play these songs and they would play the chords and I would be the singer. And so I was thinking of some other ways to, approach ukulele, especially for 6th grade. And I thought about tablature. I'm like, if we're not going to sing the melody, then maybe we can play the melody on the instrument. And that first lesson, I got just as confused as them teaching it. And so it took some years, but I did not give up because I did see these beautiful moments where that this lesson ukulele reached a student that maybe didn't totally love singing, but it made their love grow for the ukulele when they could play the melody on the instrument. So today, let's talk about my top 5 tips for teaching tab. Hi, if you are new around here, my name is Jessie. I am a kindergarten through 6th grade elementary music teacher here in Arizona. And on this channel, I love to teach modern lesson ideas. I love to share anything about planning and technology and ukulele. So my first tip for you is about the strings. So the 4 lines of tab, and I'll just use my Harry Potter tablature here. I have nice thick lines to represent the tablature, and I talk about how there's 4 lines on the tablature, and there are 4 strings on the ukulele, and so these are representing the strings. And so the trickiest thing of tablature is that when you read it, that top line is like this. It's holding on that A string, and then the E string, and then the C string, and then the G string. But when you play, you don't play this way. You play the opposite way. And so the strings end up seeming like they're in the opposite order. And a few ways that I, talk about this with my students and help make it easier for them is the first thing is I color code. And I put these little stickers by the nut that represent or that color code with the strings of my tablature printables. And these little circles can be, look like this. They are on Amazon. I think they're a 1/4 inch and they're like office supplies labels. And so they match perfectly with the clip art that I use in this. And so color coding is going to be your friend. I am just so for color coding. I think in the elementary level, I am trying to remove any barrier that I can for a student to have a musical experience that is successful. And I think that it's my job to introduce these musical theories and concepts. But I think mostly my job is to have positive experiences with music. And so hopefully, we're creating lifelong lovers of music and that they want to continue ukulele because they had such a successful experience. So that's my little tidbit, my little philosophy on that. So that can be the trickiest thing. The biggest hurdle to get through is just wrapping your head around that the lines are going to be opposite of what you are playing. So I teach it this way. I say, okay, so the very first line of tab, that top line is A. Guess where your first string is? Your first string is on the bottom. It's your A string. We count strings from the bottom to the top. Your second line of tab is your E string. That E string is your second string here, 1, 2. That third line is C. Guess what? 1, 2, 3, C string. And then finally, your fourth, that bottom line is going to be the 4th string. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I explained that to them. They look confused. They're like, okay, and you just move on because you're going to trust that, in a few lessons to come, that will sink in, but it definitely helps. I also, in that second lesson, after we've had this explanation of the lines on the tablature, I will also play a little game with them where I will shout out, or I will show an image of, a tablature, and I'll point to a line and I will say, okay, what string is that? And they have to take their little thumb and put it by which string it is. And so that really helps too. I do that the second lesson, so it has a little time to kind of marinate in their brain, starting to think about it. And then I'll say, okay, I'll point to the second line of tablature. What line is that? Okay, so we're going to count 1, 2, boom, right? What is that 4th string of tab? And I show an image of it. Okay, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, that G string. Okay, and so we practice with this also. That is a big help. My second tip for you is being intentional with your song choice. and really having them build in difficulty. So that first day when I talk about tablature and how to read it, and of course we also talk about the numbers. The numbers is not the numbers on the, like these numbers represent the fret space. That is always really easy for them to understand, and so that's why I'm not really going over through it. It's more the strings that are the tricky part. Okay, so on that first day, we talk about the strings, we talk about the fret spaces, how to line it up, and then we talk about hot cross buns, which isn't like the music cliche, like always our first song is hot cross buns, but you know what? It does work out perfectly. So let me show you guys. Hot cross buns is on one string, and so that is why I choose it. You also could do Smoke on the Water. That is like a kind of a rock riff that is also on one string. But I do this because they don't have to think about anything else. Once they know how to find the A string, they're like, okay, it's on the top line. That's the first line of tab. What's my first string? The bottom one, right? So A. And so when they play, they're just having to think about putting their fingers in the correct fret spaces. And then my second lesson is Mary Had a Little Lamb. Guess how many strings it uses? Just 2. And then Twinkle Twinkle, just 3. And then finally Old MacDonald, 4. And so you work your way up from there, and every day you're adding another string. Mary Had a Little Lamb is always the portion because it becomes that 2 strings, and them understanding which way to go on the instrument can be very tricky. But that second lesson, usually the light bulbs start to go off. All right, 3. 3 is let students help each other and have time for independent work. This is really a kind of it's a unit that a lot of students have different paces. And I think it really extremely helps when, there's only one of me. And so I am going around the class having that independent time to practice and helping students, but there are some students that just get it. They get it right away, and having them pair up with another classmate really extremely helps, and it helps everyone. So I have found letting students kind of work with people and also who they're comfortable with. I think that really helps too, is, they may not feel comfortable or embarrassed like talking to me about, learning it, but maybe they are more comfortable learning it from their friend, or because they're in that pairing group, they're more comfortable asking me for help. So that has really been a help, and it's a kind of like, it leads to a community kind of feeling like we're all helping each other out. Next up, let's talk about which fingers to use. So ideally, we would want, to train our students to use 1 finger per fret space, and we're using all of the fingers. But I've noticed, like especially pinky, if you're not used to playing a string instrument, that pinky is so incredibly weak. Like hot cross buns. Hot cross buns is 4, 2, 0. 4, 2, 0. 0, 0, 0, 0, 2, 2, 2, 2, 4, 2, 0. And that can be really hard, your very first lesson, your very first song, playing 4. So I tell them either use your first 2 fingers, and you can play if they can stretch enough, but then that's a tricky thing too, is stretching. So they're playing the 4th fret space with 2, and their first finger for the 2nd fret space. And that's a great choice too. Or even, I'm not totally against using just 1 finger. I have a lot of kids that would like to just use their 1 finger. And you know what? I'm okay with that because it's kind of teaching them to shift. I think that that's okay. I think all of them are valid. Either they're using, our most idealist is that we would be using all of our fingers and using our pinky, they're strengthening their pinky, or they're learning how to stretch with using 2 fingers, or they're learning how to shift up and down the neck with using 1 finger. So I don't get too harped down on the fingerings as much. As long as they're playing in the correct fret space. A big thing for them is not knowing how to drop their wrist and getting underneath the instrument and using the power of the pinchiness. A lot of times I have students that will try and play like this. Or they will be like playing, but their thumb is all the way up here. And so really having them practice drop the wrist, dropping that wrist down is definitely something that helps too with putting down their fingers. And my last tip for you is having a very varied, wide selection of songs that your students can play. So I usually have my students start off with these 4, classic folk songs, but it's not my, end all be all. They're just the songs that I'm going to kind of hold hands through. We're going to really all take the same pace. We're going to make sure everyone is good to go. And then after that, I just start, having students try out things as they're ready. And so I have a tub. It looks like this. I got it from Walmart. It's a little filing cabinet tub. And so I have all my songs in there, and then I just start saying, oh, hey, here's an option. And so I have, after that, I have A Whole New World. And I just do a segment of the song. I don't do the entire song per se. A Whole New World, little ditty from there. I have Harry Potter, which you saw when I was explaining the strings. I have a little duet that is pretty cute. It's Linus and Lucy. And so the students can pair up with another person and each play, it's a 1-string thing again. So that's really nice. And they can play it together. The da 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 da. It's very cute. And then even after my students have really done a very good job, the hardest thing that I had was Harry Potter, Hedwig's theme, and they did so well. I actually found some more difficult songs, like Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and I found these actually on Flat.io website. They're in their, what is it called? They're gallery where people have, dropped their own songs or have shared their songs. So Over the Rainbow was one that's definitely, and for release, I feel like so many students know that da 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 da. We hear it so much. And this one is really difficult, but if you have a stellar, a student that's I got this, I'm bored, that is a great one to give them. So I will link those down below for you guys. For all kind of my pop tunes, and also link how to get to these Flat.io arrangements that are really good. All right, guys, that are my 5 tips for teaching tab. It is such a rewarding lesson, especially I always seem to do it with my 6th graders about those last few months, because it's a great self-paced, working as a community kind of lessons where, the students come in and they get to do a lot of playing and working in small groups, and they're very engaged in this lesson. And again, that hurdle of singing is it's kind of removed. Most students are super excited to learn how to play melodies on the ukulele. And what's really cool too is if you build on this, if you have taught them some chords in in 5th grade or the year before, then you can even start to combine some of that, Mary Had a Little Lamb. Someone plays the melody, the other person plays the chords, and putting that together. I usually then after, I end up having them perfect a song of their choice, and it can be whatever level that they want and they feel most comfortable with. And then I've even had, younger classes come in and they give a little concert for them, or they play for their teacher, and it's really cool to see, how excited they get and how that sense of pride that they can play a song. So that's so cool on the ukulele. So that is it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.